Welcome everybody to Stephen Friends. We've had the opportunity on and off over the last few weeks anyway to interview some of the great campus pastors we've got in Queensland and Northern Territories. In the last 10 years, we've gone from one campus to 10 campuses in those 10 years. So it's been an amazing journey, and that's only possible because of some of the great leaders that we have. So two of my faves, sorry about that, everybody else, but two of my faves, definitely Tim and Michelle Andrew. And it is actually their 15th wedding anniversary as we speak. That's true, hey?
Yes.
I didn't realise that when we booked this in today, but that's fantastic. So what's going to happen today that's so special, Tim? What have you got lined up to make this the most memorable 15th wedding anniversary in history?
It's been a festival of anniversary from the moment we woke up. There have been gifts peppered throughout the day.
Nice.
We are going to Rogue Bistro tonight, and that is an experience going there, one of Michelle's favourite places.
Nice work, mate. Nice work.
Yeah.
You got the brownie points for that. That's good. Anyway, congratulations, seriously.
Thank you.
And we'll talk a little bit about marriage and family and so on later on, because you got a fascinating story in that. So stay with us, everybody, because there is some incredible components to this interview which you're going to be blessed by and helped by. So, Tim, just kicking us off, just very quickly, give us a little bit of an insight into your roots.
My roots, I was born in New Zealand, Christchurch. And you know what? I'm really proud of my heritage, and I love Kiwis, but I'm a full-blown Aussie. Michelle would say technically I'm a Kiwi, but I don't go for the All Blacks. I go for the Wallabies, so I would say technically I'm an Aussie.
Oh, that's controversial, but okay, we can live with that. That's fantastic.
So
when did you move? When did you leave? When did you leave New Zealand?
Yeah, when I was 2. So all I've known is Australia. That's why I feel like.
Okay, there you go. Michelle, what about you? You were from some mega city in Australia, eh?
True. I am from actually a little town out of Sydney called Gosford, which, to be honest, I've not been back. I only lived there for 3 months and then got moved out to Dubbo. Go Dubbo's, country girl.
Country girl. So do you like country music?
No.
That's a good answer. Definitely of the devil. It doesn't work. All right. So tell us quickly a little bit about your family, starting with you, Tim.
Yeah, great family. Love my parents. Grew up in a Christian home. They were pastors, and got an older brother who lives on the sunny coast, and an older sister as well who lives 2 streets away, and got a great family.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Michelle?
Similar. I have amazing parents. Both live in Brisbane. Well, they live together in Brisbane. Brought up in a Christian home, and I've got an older sister who lives in London with her husband and their puppy dog, and a younger brother who lives just around the corner from us and is also a dad. So, yeah, we're blessed. We pinch ourselves. Actually, we've got amazing families.
Yeah,
that's great. You have. Tell us about the kids.
Our babies.
Come on.
Our babies. I'm going to take this one because I'm their mum. We have a 9-year-old, Mia, Poppy, Andrew, and honestly, she is a fireball. We got 2 redheads, Steve.
2 redheads, it's true. She's 9 going on 19, basically. Hey, she's one of the smartest kids around.
She's epic. We prayed for a vibrant child, and that's what we got.
Yeah. You got a vibrant child. And what about River? Tell us the story of River. Come on, that was a miracle.
Yeah.
So after we had Mia, we were told we couldn't have any more kids. They just said, you cannot naturally have babies anymore. So we waited 6 years for our little miracle boy, and through a IVF journey, actually, God gave us River, and he is also a redhead, not quite as fiery as his sister.
He's got fire.
But he's just the icing on the cake for our family, you know, and his name is quite prophetic. We called him River because rivers are symbolic of rivers of life in the Bible, and we really felt like he was going to bring healing and life to our family, and he's a mummy's boy through and through, so
he is.
We love him.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a grandson called River, so I'm a fan of the name, obviously. And I remember seeing the little fella, goodness knows how small he was in that incubator for a little while, and visit him in there. And see him now, he's an absolute joy, obviously for you, but for everyone else as well. So come on, who's going to tell us the story how you two got together?
Oh, look,
come on, Tim.
It was a moment for me anyway. We were 7 years old, and her family...
7 years old.
Yeah,
7.
Her family started coming to our church. Yeah, and I honestly remember seeing her and liking her from the word go. And I always thought, she's awesome. And I liked her all the way through. Had a crush on her the whole way.
My God. Were you aware of this at 7 years of age, Michelle? Or however old you were?
I remember Tim, put it that way. I remember I knew Tim. I was about 14 years slower than he was before I realised he was the one. So
14 years. So we're talking 21. I see where you're going. So how did you manage to convince us, Tim?
Look, I would say it was a lot of fear involved in terms of skydiving. Was kind of ended up being our first date. We all, as mates, chipped in for Michelle to go skydiving for her 21st. And then I made the call and said, hey, I'd love to come with you. And so that was kind of the moment where it all sparked. I think I was there for her in the moment of fear, jumping out of the plane.
Oh, you're chivalrous.
Just kept flying.
He proved himself a good man. So, from that day, actually, I was like, Tim, he's a good guy. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Good move, Mr. Andrew. Very, very good. So skydiving, there's a tip from the Andrew couple, Andrew family. Skydiving is a good way to go further in a relationship, show a bit of chivalry. So how do you get them from there to marriage then?
Well, look, I'm very embarrassed about this, but I did some incredible dates, but really we ended up going on a missions trip to East Timor, which was an incredible experience. And about halfway through that, I'd actually got a word from God that she was going to be my wife, which I always, held close to my chest, but I felt like God prompted me to say it, which is something I've told people it's the stupidest thing you could say. You don't ever say that to a girl, even if God says something to you. But I full on felt like God was saying, go for it. So I did. And I remember thinking this is the last time she's ever going to speak to me. She's going to run. But I said, I feel like God's saying you're the one.
Wow.
She didn't
how did you take the God pressure, Michelle?
I actually, in the moment, I just went, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's do this. But again, we were in this moment on a mission trip. So when we got home, I did run. I spent about 2 months ignoring him and playing hard to get. But look, fast forward 7 months and we were walking down the aisle. So clearly God got us both. Yeah.
So you were both school teachers at the time, is that right?
Yeah.
I was still in uni, but studying education, yeah.
Right, okay, good. So I do know that you went to London, but tell us a story. Why did you go? What was in your thinking to go to London for that experience?
Well, I think for both of us, we'd both separately really wanted to travel. So selfishly, our purpose for going was to just travel and have an adventure. I had just graduated education. Tim had been teaching for a number of years and we thought, well, we've got no kids, we don't own a house, let's go now. And so we went off with ancestry visas. We were planning on going for a number of years and just letting the wind take us. And so we went for the adventure, to be honest. We just wanted to see the world and we had no money in our pocket. So we thought, well, we better work while we're there. And that's why we went, to be honest.
So what year was that?
2007.
2007. All right. So what did you go through in London? What did you enjoy? What experiences kind of shaped the future for you?
On the adventure side, we travelled for 18 weeks of the year. We knew teaching over there, they got so many holidays. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we travelled for so much. We went running with the bulls, which don't recommend, don't condone.
Stupidest thing I had ever done in my life, and I realised while doing it.
But
while running away from a bull.
Literally.
We had a lot. We were young, right? We were young 20s, so we didn't quite think that one through. But, we bought a cheap camper van and travelled Europe for 6 weeks. We did the adventure, but I think what we didn't anticipate was actually the impact church would have on us over there.
Yeah.
And when we think of London, the first thing that comes to mind is our experience in Hillsong London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hillsong London was the first Hillsong church experience you had?
Yeah.
We had been to conference before, but then that was the first time going to a church service.
Yeah.
And what was it like?
You know what? It was actually an experience because we'd, come from being surrounded by friends and family. We didn't know anybody in London, like not a single person. And so for us walking in, that was the first place we went, and walking in alone, isolated, we honestly found family instantly. It was like you couldn't walk more than 10 meters without people coming in and saying g'day and welcoming you and inviting you to everything. We got invited to lunch, and then we got invited to parties, and we got invited to this and that. Constantly. It was unbelievable. So we found instant family, even people to the point of saying, it's a mate's birthday, you got to come along to his party. We're like, we're not coming to someone's party who we've never met and we don't know. And they're just like, no, it's not like that here. We all just jump in. So just come, just be part. And it just felt like instant family automatically.
How good is that? What about you, Michelle? You thought the same?
Oh, 100%. But I think for me, it was just, I've never been to such a vibrant, energetic, like people were running. There was lineups to get into church. And this is 13 years ago. An inner city, right on the, we went to the Dominion Theatre in London. You're right smack in the middle of everything. And there's lineups. And you could tell people just didn't want you to miss out on being a part of it. And the worship's happening and everyone's jumping around. It was just next level. Awesome. The joy in that place and the energy was something Tim and I had never experienced before. And so week one, we were planning on checking out all these different churches because we were kind of able to for the first time in our, years. But
I even said to Michelle, we've got to check out
never left.
like 10 places. I want to go and check them out. And then just found home.
We loved it.
That's fantastic.
Still love it.
So those would be the days of the Dominion Theatre. That's when you go through the entrance and you're literally walking through the legs of Freddie Mercury.
Yep.
Because the rest of the week it's the rock opera that's on there. What was it called? Which one was it? We Will Rock You.
We Will Rock You. Yeah.
We Will Rock You. Go to church and you got to get past Freddie Mercury to get in.
So cool.
Always gave me a great sense of joy. But church, it was funny.
Amazing.
So obviously you're on a plane. You come to the end of your time there. You're on your way back to Brisbane. What was the hopes, aspirations, thoughts at that time?
We'll be really honest. We didn't come back because we wanted to come back. We came back because God made it really clear He wanted us to come back. We'd wanted to stay for a number of years. So we weren't coming back with much expectation other than it was going to be better than London, because why would God make you go home if it wasn't? So we didn't know what that looked like. Hillsong Brisbane wasn't a thing yet. The only Hillsong in Australia was Sydney. So we knew Hillsong wasn't in our immediate future. So we came back a little bit like a toddler. I think we were digging our heels in, trying to fight God on the decision. But we just knew we had to come home. And so it probably was a year in and we're like, this is awful. Let's just go back to London. Like, where's the promise of God in this? Like, we're back into teaching, and we were floating around churches because Tim's dad's church had merged with another while we were gone. So our family church wasn't really even there anymore either. We felt a bit lost, actually, when we came back. We just had got a word to go home and nothing else. That is all God told us at the time. We wanted to be faithful, but it was a bit rough those first few years back, to be honest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hold the story there because you're just arriving back in Brisbane, and we'll come back to that and move forward in a few moments. But I want to talk to you about marriage because, up to this point in time, sounds like everything's fantastic. I mean, this guy's been chasing you since he's 7 years of age. Mr. Chivalry himself, throwing himself to look after you and all of that, and then taking you over to the United Kingdom and getting you around Europe. What a guy!
Amazing.
But actually, marriage for you two wasn't straightforward. So tell us a little bit about what you want to tell us about.
Yeah, you know what? It was pre-marriage great. As soon as we got married, just saying it how it is, it was awful straight away. And it was awful for a good 4 or 5, even maybe 6 years. And the only way we can describe it is broken. It was just broken. And it just didn't work. We couldn't explain it. We couldn't figure it out. And we both got to the point that was pretty dire. I mean, how do you sum it up where you got to?
Yeah, I think, despite all of those fun things that were happening, we'd go home at night and we weren't in sync. There was just this brokenness. And I remember when we got back from London and that first year, so it was towards the end of the year, I'd sit in the car multiple nights a week just crying and going, God, I really value my vows. I don't want to be the one to leave. But I remember my prayers turned to God, make Tim leave me, because it's a bit of a cop-out, really. I'm like, I don't want to be the one that has to carry that, but I don't see any way out of this. This is so hard. It's impossible. How do we fix something that's so broken?
And I'd got to that point because I kind of knew, I thought a lot and knew how to make things work. And so I was trying everything I could, and I got to the point where I just knew there's nothing I could do. And so the way I thought about it, honestly, is I felt like God was going to take one of us home to heaven. I felt like that's the only way this was going to end. And so I honestly remember praying the prayer of, Jesus, if you have to take one of us home, take Michelle. Save me. No, I'm kidding. I truly prayed the prayer.
I think you actually did.
I promise you I didn't. I prayed the prayer, God, if you're going to take me, save her. She's going to be all good. But,
oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't a great place.
No.
So how do you get through that? How does anybody get through a marriage that's gone to that level?
Well, I think, as we said, we didn't know where to go. We were broken. And we look back now, and I think the turning point, actually, it got worse before it got better. So at the end of that first year home, end of 2008, I got diagnosed with severe anxiety. And I got sick very quickly and very debilitating. So I lost the ability just to function. Tim became my carer at the time, and I went through a 12-month treatment program, medication, counselling, and just sort of figuring myself out. And at the beginning of that, God he gave me clarity in that season, and he really spoke to me. I had an encounter with him at a beach, and he just revealed to me. It was the first time I think I'd almost heard the audible voice of God. And he just said to me, Michelle, you've got revealed to me a small fear that I had. And he said, this is one small fear that's ruled you. And he said, I want to work through the small fears, and then I want to work through all the big fears, because you can't fulfill the purpose I have for you if we don't. And so in that moment, God just showed me, I'm about to take you on a journey. And essentially what he wanted to do was take down my walls, which was what was keeping Tim out, which was harming our marriage, which was causing us to free me. And we went on that 12-month journey, and Tim just stood by my side that whole way. It wasn't easy. I mean, mental health is not an easy journey to walk out. But I knew, because of the promise God gave me at the beginning, that he would be faithful and that I had to do the hard work with him. And so that in that year allowed me to bring down those walls. And because Tim was my rock, he was my go-to, it brought us closer than we'd ever been in the 6 years of our marriage. And that became the catalyst of going, okay, well, if we can do that to fix me, then let's apply the same thing to our marriage, which is just learn all we can. Let's just admit we don't know what we're doing, admit that there's blind spots, admit we need to learn. And we just dove into figuring it out, reading books, asking questions, getting help.
Yeah.
And that really changed everything for us.
Wow, thanks for being vulnerable on that. So Tim, in the worst of the times, did you genuinely believe you could get through this?
100%. Never doubted it. In fact, the worst of time for Michelle is going to sound wrong, but it was the best time for me, because that was the moment she started letting me in. And so I knew that I knew. I never doubted, because purely faith. Never gave up, because I knew God was going to have his way.
I remember Tim saying at the beginning of our marriage, right at the beginning, that he doesn't want an ordinary marriage. He wants an extraordinary marriage. And so that Tim always went in with this faith that for more. He didn't want mediocre. He didn't want average. He wanted great. And I think even when it looked so bleak, the only reason we're together today and neither one of us walked away was because we genuinely believed God could do a miracle.
And that doesn't mean there wasn't pain and awful pain and difficult moments and crying out to God. But I hung on. Yeah, we hung on.
Wow. Well, 15th anniversary today. Two wonderful kids. And we know the end of the story, because we see you now in these last few years helping so many other people in terms of their marriages, apart from everything else that you do. So let's just talk a little bit. Let's shift over now. You're back in Brisbane. You've come through, you're going through those circumstances. You got a heart. You joined what was Garden City Church that became Hillsong Church very quickly. Yeah. And because of what you went through, you had this big heart to help other people in their marriages. So what was the first kind of roles that you did at Garden City Hillsong back then?
Yeah, we had a friend who recommended the marriage course, the Alpha Marriage course, to us. So we started looking into that and got a real heart to run that, because we realized we went through years of grief and then turned it around, and we saw this and saw how we could help people in 4 weeks proactively save them from going through the same grief. So we just started running the marriage course. And then things just took off from there, and people loved it and people were really getting impacted by it. So we just kept doing that, wanted to encourage people and speak into relationships, and it just seemed to resonate and really shift people with where they're at to believe that they could have a great marriage and not just make it through, but to actually fly.
Yeah.
So then you go from being the school teacher down the road to coming on staff as one of the pastors. Tell people about how that came about.
Yeah, so that was an incredible season for us when you asked us to come on staff, and we just, again, we knew it was a God thing straight away. We were all in, and just come on as families pastors, and that included what we were already doing with marriage, but it meant we could start working things out in terms of families and parenting courses as well. And that was fantastic. And then, looking at the Family Zone Connect groups and looking after the cafe as well. So it was an incredible season.
Right. let me just fill in my side of that story, because the first time I really kind of noticed you guys was when you were doing that midweek marriage course, really helping other people. And I remember going in a couple of times into the building, and you were there with a small team that you'd built, setting things up and setting the tables out and just making everything beautiful for other people to come and arrive. And there was just something about you two that I thought, yes. And I've got to tell you, I felt in my heart then, Tim, and I said this to my wife that night, Tim's a pastor. Tim's going to be, when I get the chance for, bring on other pastors onto team, Tim's a guy that I want. And we said that back then, having seen you a couple of times, you just felt it in your heart. And here you are all these years later doing an incredible job. And it's amazing how things kind of come together, hey?
Amazing.
So, families pastor Brisbane Central. Then we need you in Brisbane downtown to become campus pastors. Did you see that coming?
Not one bit. Not at all.
So tell us how it's been. It's been about 5 years.
Yeah, just come up to 5 years.
Yeah. No, it was out of the blue. But weirdly, a month before, Tim and I had just been chatting. They're like, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you be? Where would you, what you do? And Tim said Brisbane City. And we're like, oh, that's like, we can't. We're at Mount Gravatt, we're families pastor, and he said Brisbane City, since he was a 17-year-old boy, he used to go and pray over the city and believe that spiritual lights would go on in all the buildings, that there'd be, God would have revival in the city. And he said, it's just been my heart, Brisbane City. And that was a random out of the blue conversation we had a month before we were then, asked to take it on. So God was, I guess, preparing our hearts without us realizing. It was not on at all.
Yeah. Well, you've done amazing. I mean, I know that things like the attendance has tripled or more since then. I think we also went through five venues in 12 months, and nothing's been straightforward. We've used nightclubs with sticky floors and performing arts centres and hotels and all sorts of stuff. But to have, before COVID anyway, 1,100 people, I think we're probably averaging somewhere around about there, is absolutely fantastic. So, what has been the best things about these last 5 years? What about the building, for instance? That's amazing. Hey?
It's just absolutely miraculous. When I look back over 5 years, I'm just blown away by what God has done, and to see, constant growth even through the Wes Wally season of looking for churches. But then when
Wes Wally,
someone bought me an outfit and made that joke, it was, people were trying to figure out, where are we today? And they're looking up on social media, but it was fun. But I think the theatre was just an absolute miracle. One of our guys just walked past and saw it, and it turned into what it is. And it's been an absolute game changer for the city of Brisbane, and to see the amount of people who have been impacted, just to see the souls, 2,000 souls in the first 12 months, and people walking in. We got a Friday night service, so people walking in off the street who didn't even know it was church. And I love that. I love the thought of people not even realizing that they're about to encounter Jesus, have their life transformed, and it's just constantly happening. So I think the theatre and the way it's impacted everything, it just automatically boosted things. And when I think about the impact, even we've just finished Heart for the House, and I love the fact that we saw the generosity of all the different locations and our location all chipping in, and we got to see the face-to-face, look people in the eyes as they're crying, and drug addicts who, it's just such an honour to see it and to be part of what we're a part of.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So everybody who's given to the foundation, to Heart for the House, thank you, because these are the real fruit of that giving. So let's start to bring this to a conclusion and a climax as well. What's the vision, just in a few words? What can you see happening in Brisbane downtown, Brisbane City, over the next few years?
I think for me, it's, I think our first experience of Hillsong Church was London. And I don't think it was a coincidence that was an inner city building with lineups and that had such an impact, back-to-back services. And so for us, I think God gave us that little taster of, here's what I want to do. And, here we are now leading an inner city church. And we're in the midst of one of the biggest development areas of Brisbane City, and we're not there by coincidence. And so for us, it's just having greater impact. We've always felt and had the prophetic word over the city that we would be a light. That building would be a beacon of light. We're just across from all the law courts. We're down the road from the Queensland Police Service, and we want to impact the generations. I think we want to make sure that this church is strong in all ages. and just continue to have an actual on the ground impact. I think someone really challenged us with the idea of, if your church suddenly left tomorrow, would the city miss you? And for us, it's like, we want to be missed. We want to have such an impact that people would miss us if we were gone. And we know the building isn't about the building. The building is about the people. And we've seen a taster of that in the first 18 months. But our vision isn't small.
Tim, just with a few words, Tim, you want to add anything?
I just have complete faith to see revival in the city, to see the city of Brisbane. Don't laugh at me. Laugh at me.
He never manages to finish a preach without crying.
He can't do it, Steve. He can't.
I just have a big heart to see. You know, I used to work in the city at a surf shop, and I used to dream about my mates who would never come to church coming along. And I think for me, that's the heart, to see a city in revival, people who would never normally come. I heard recently about a church where it was way up north, somewhere in Northern Territory, I think, and people literally were lining up midweek outside this church because they heard that healing was happening. So people would line up and healings were taking place. And so I'm excited for the days that are coming where we're going to see revival and see healings and miracles and signs and wonders, that people are going to think, what's going on in the city of Brisbane? And churches are going to be flooded with people, and we're going to see a flood of salvation. So I'm full of faith for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. So the campus is in very, very, very good hands. It's our local campus as well, because we only live down the road. We can actually walk there. So you'll be seeing us now and again for sure. Okay, so to finish, and literally in a sentence each, give us a tip about marriage. And can I just say, if you're listening to this, the people to learn from about a subject aren't the ones who have been perfect all the way through, but the ones who have had to learn tough lessons. So if you were to give one tip each, what would it be?
I'm going to go with my favourite marriage quote, and it's, marriage isn't 50-50, it's 100-100. And I think when we go in all in with our whole hearts, never giving up, never settling for just making it through, but believing for the best, believing for an extraordinary marriage, and just saying goodbye status quo, forgetting what normal is, and letting rip, going for it, believing for the best, and then taking the steps to do it. I would even suggest a book to read would be by Dr. John Gottman, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. It is an evidence-based book, and it just teaches you principles. It's almost like a formula to flourish. So awesome.
Right. Okay, and even shorter quote than that one, Michelle.
I just say remain teachable. Be willing to be taught by your partner. Be willing to understand you're not going to know everything. You're going to go through seasons where you need to learn. So just remain teachable. Okay,
and last one. Your kids are awesome because the parents are pretty awesome. One tip each on parenting.
I would say don't miss the moments. I think I've learnt that in this season. There's been so many moments that are beautiful. So make the most of every moment.
Yep. And I would say figure out their love language and just shower them with it. So Mia's is quality time, and she's a different child if you give her just quality time. So figure out how to love them and do it lots.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Absolutely loved having a few minutes to share your story with other people. I know people will be blessed by it and helped by it. You two as a couple are fantastic. It's not that you're doing a great job, it's that you're great people. And out of who you are and what God has, put into you, and there's plenty more to come out. And there's been nothing wasted. The trip to London was not wasted. Even the marriage struggles that you went through has certainly not been wasted, because so many people have been helped and will be helped in the years ahead. So if you're at Brisbane downtown, you're very blessed. Can't wait to meet together again soon in a post-COVID, post-restriction season. We'll get there sometime soon. Fill that Hillsong Theatre many, many times over and see the revival that your leaders and we're all believing for. So thanks, Tim and Michelle. God bless you, everybody else. Stay safe. God bless.